Okay, why don't we get started? I have 6:02 on my phone, so 6:02 p.m. I'm calling to order the Monday, May 2nd, 2022 meeting of the Eugene School District 4J Budget Committee. And we'll start with a call to order. I guess I just did that. And now a roll call. So let me go through the list I have here. And just let me know, and everyone, if you're here, if you could just do it verbally so I can, in case I don't see you on my screen. Dakota Boulette.
I'm here.
Thank you. Josh Burstein, that's me. I am here. Gary Campbell. Gary, going once.
Gary's working on connecting.
We'll circle back in a minute. Tom DiLiberto.
Here.
Tom is here. And Fifield.
I'm here.
And Alicia Hayes.
Here.
Here. Kirti Hasija Kaufman.
Kirti, I'm here. Hi.
And please make sure, correct me if I mispronounce your name. Say it again.
Kirti, and the last
Kirti.
name is Hasija Kaufman. Yep. thanks.
Hasija Kaufman. Perfect. Welcome tonight. I know this is your first meeting, so and you'll get right into it, I'm sure. Michelle Shu, also first meeting. Welcome, Michelle. Not yet. We'll come back. Gordon Lafer.
I'm here.
Gordon is here. Judy Newman.
I'm here.
Here. Laurel O'Rourke.
I'm here.
Laurel is here. Maya Rabasa.
Here.
Maya. Erica Thesson. There.
I'm here.
He and Juan Carlos Valle.
Here.
Here. Let me circle back to Gary Campbell.
Not quite yet, Josh.
Not yet. And Michelle Shu.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary, I see you. I just heard you. Okay, great, Gary. And Michelle, I can see you, but I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just having a connection issues.
Okay, we'll try your best. We see you and hear you right now. So, and then the only other one I had was Michelle Shu.
I'm here.
Hey, Michelle, welcome to tonight to the Budget Committee. I believe we are all here then. We have a full 14 people. Am I counting right? Awesome. Okay, so let us do the agenda review. Excuse me. On the agenda, as you saw, we had coming up, we have 4 items raised by the audience, which is public comment. I am told there is no public comment at this point. Okay. If someone does make a request later on in the meeting, let us know. Then we have under items for information, number 1, answers to questions raised from that last budget committee meeting we had last week. And you all should have received a few days ago the PowerPoint, which we'll see soon about the budget, but also the, I don't know how many pages it was, about 10 pages or so of answers to questions that we had last time. So I really want to thank staff in advance for the work they put into that. And I'm sure they'll take us through it. And then budget committee discussion after that. So that will be us, of course. Again, I will suggest in the interest of time to let the, as I did last time, the PowerPoint and other materials that will be presented to us to go through and then save questions for after that as part of our, as we move into discussion too. And then there may be follow-up questions for 4J staff during that discussion as well. I know as was said earlier, we have a lot of people on the call who are staff who hopefully will help us help answer any questions we may have as well, or supplement some of what we're going to see tonight. And then we'll have items for action, assuming we get to that point by 7:25, that we are ready to approve the budget and declare tax rates and debt service levy. That would be the next step. But of course, that would be at the end right before adjournment. Anyone have any urgent issues on the agenda? Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. And I'm going to ask. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There's a
Who is
hand
that?
up.
I'm sorry. Oh, Laurel, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. There's I would like things changed on the budget, and I want to bring that to the budget committee. And I don't see where that is. There's space for that on this agenda.
So I would suggest under budget committee discussion that I think that would probably be the right place for that, in the
Okay.
sense that and someone help me here or staff. I'm thinking we see the materials first, have staff go through it, And then at that point, as we have questions or Laurel said, if we want to see something changed or clarification or something different, I think that would be part of questions and discussion. Does that work for everyone?
That should be the process. That way, in case the changes are being already made, if not, then Laurel's suggestions can be added later on.
Okay, I do see two hands on this one. So Gary, go ahead, and then Gordon after Gary.
And thank you. I apologize for my lack of connection. I'm doing kiddo pickup right now. I just was wondering if we have minutes to approve from last meeting, or if that's not happening this go round.
Good question. My guess is we didn't have enough time for them to be turned around. Carrie or
That would be
Andrea or Sid?
correct.
Okay, Andrea. Okay.
Yep.
And then, Gordon, sorry, your hand.
Thanks. This is just a procedural thing, and I could be wrong, but I think we can discuss anything during the discussion, but then under items for action, we have an item for action of motion or resolution or whatever that is to approve the proposed budget. So I would guess there, just in terms of making decisions, that's the place that if somebody wanted something changed, they would make an amendment to the resolution to adopt the budget as is, to say, with XYZ change. And if I'm wrong about that, I don't know if there's somebody smarter.
Andrea, maybe I'll ask you to start answering that. And if Christine needs to get on, I am not Robert's Rules of Order perfectly qualified. So Andrea, go ahead.
Typically, what would happen is the budget committee would make recommendations to the board for things that might be added or changed, but it would be the board of directors in their meeting on June 1st who would actually make changes to the budget before they adopt it in the process. So typically it is a budget committee recommendation for certain actions that then can be acted upon by the board of directors.
So let me ask as a point of order then, if we get to that point and we do have a motion and someone feels there's not something in there that they would want in there from the committee, since we're an advisory committee to the board, what are the options? I mean, that person obviously can vote no or abstain, but is there a way for comment, either public comment or even some of us on this committee to speak to the board at their meetings when they do this? And I recognize half of us are board members, but you see where I'm coming from.
Any budget committee member, just like any member of the public, could come and give public testimony at the meeting on June 1st as part of the public comment period for the budget.
Gordon, your hand's still up. Go ahead.
So maybe the superintendent can weigh in. My understanding was that the budget committee has to actually vote to send a recommended budget to the board, and then the board can make whatever revisions it wants and then vote on a final thing. So if somebody wanted recommendations included in the recommended budget that the budget committee is recommending to the board, then it would be appropriate to make them tonight as part of that amendment. Because I had previously thought what I heard you say, Andrea, was like, oh, this is just all recommendation and there's no actual voting. But then I got told that was wrong. So I don't know, Sydney, if you can clarify.
Right.
Go ahead, Sid.
So tonight we're recommending a certain amount to the taxes, and we're recommending, here, let me find my piece of paper. So there's total funds that come from both general and other funds totals. And then there's also the tax rates and the debt service. So there's a certain amount that we're pushing forward. If we want to change things that we're putting, so maybe a program, and you want to do something a little different with it, then that's not, you could do that, Gordon, with say ESSER dollars that haven't been spoken for, or I don't really know what is going to be asked here in a minute. So I don't know. I don't know that you can change a whole budget line and without going through the budget committee.
Okay, so then it would be important if people want to see something done to include it in the budget committee's recommendation.
Yes.
So Andrea, I think that, well, I don't actually know exactly what you're asking, but if you're asking to use, let's say, ESSER funds that are being appropriated but haven't been spent yet, that you could do that on a different day. If you want to change lines on the actual budget, then we would need to do that here.
And Andrea, I thought you're maybe about to help respond, and then I see Laurel's hand is up too. Go ahead.
So typically, if you are interested, if you wish to put forward the, you might say the recommendation to the board, additional funds outside of the amount that is being asked to be appropriated here. Let me give an example. In past years, we sometimes would have a bond issuance that was completed after the point that the proposed budget was in the can and sent out to the budget committee. So we would come to the budget committee and we would make a recommendation for an amendment to the proposed budget to include additional funds to pay for the bond principal and interest payments for that bond issuance in the coming year. So that was a change where we were actually asking the budget committee to approve a higher amount of debt service. That definitely needs to go through the budget committee because the amount that they move forward is what the board has to work with. Now, we have also had situations where there were the possibility of budget cuts, where the budget committee was asked to potentially prioritize of the many cuts that were presented as possibilities. What did they believe would be the best combination to utilize? We knew we needed $1 million. This was what they believed was the least impactful to classrooms and to the program. So that did not involve changing the dollar amounts that the budget committee approved. That just was a recommendation. So it really depends on if we are talking about changing the amounts or if we are talking about a direction that the budget committee could provide. We are interested in seeing this type of program out of existing funds that then the board could give direction to the superintendent and to the district of how those funds could be spent. As Sydney said, we have some dollars in ESSER. We have staffing dollars that we have in our budget every year in the staffing pool. We have other sources of funds that are not designated for a specific purpose at the time the budget is adopted, but could be directed by the board. So it really comes in which kind of change are we talking about?
And then Christine has something to add. I don't see her on the screen, but I think she's here.
Hello. I believe the board is in the process of, the budget committee is adopting the recommended budget, or they're approving the recommended budget, not adopting, wrong word. It's up to the board to adopt. In doing that, I think and I'm not sure what the precise question is, but if there's a question around allocate this, not that, I think it is within the scope of the budget committee to make such a recommendation. Okay.
With that said, let me turn to Laurel, who had her hand first, and then Gordon. I see his hand up as well. Laurel, you waved. Is that a wave to say no? To say, or go ahead.
I had put my hand down. I'm not sure this conversation is making things clearer for people because there's a lot of lingo happening. So I think we should probably go through the process, and where it really is the simplest way in my reading up on this is that the budget committee makes sure that we are following the guidelines that are set out by the state and everything works together. And also, we're adopting the budget for next year. So there's things that, while it may sound like it's set, it is not set yet. And so there are things people may propose to change on this. And so that's what we're discussing.
Gordon, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm with, maybe with Christine, I think what I heard you say, and this is what the statute had looked like to me too, is that the budget committee makes a recommendation. And so in the budget committee meeting, you could say, oh, we recommend also that this money be used for this or something like that. And then that final recommendation goes to the board. And then the board can do similar, can either accept all that or can make its own amendments. And then that gets finalized as the final adopted budget, which means, so people could make recommendations tonight, but it's also not the last chance, at least for board members, to make recommendations or for other people to appear as public comment. Okay.
I think that's accurate, and Andrea gave a thumbs up. And I will
Thank
just
you,
say
Andrea.
to those in the public watching or listening, just to explain a little quick thing, is that it's the board itself in June that actually adopts the budget by law. We as the budget committee here are advisory, but we make this, we would move tonight potentially to approve it and then send it on to the board, who actually is the group that adopts it in June. So I hope that makes it a little bit clearer for everybody. With all that said, let me go back to the agenda for a minute. Let me move on. Thank you again, in case anyone popped up in the interim. Items for information. Oh, this was answers to questions raised. And I know there's a PowerPoint that was sent out to us. Who should I turn it over to? Andrea, would that be you?
Andrea has the PowerPoint and I am going to go through the questions.
Okay.
So
Which do you
Andrea,
want to start with?
Do you want me just to do a quick run? We don't have much of a PowerPoint tonight because I didn't want you to be listening to me. I wanted you to have the chance to have as much conversation as possible. So I kept it short and sweet. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly and we're just going to do a quick run through. Okay, so tonight, as we said, our agenda, we have no public comment. So next step is going through the answers to your questions and then giving you the opportunity to ask follow-up questions or other questions of our staff members who are on tonight as panelists. So we can pull them up and talk with them right here. And then the goal being at the end of the meeting, if we're ready to approve the 2022-23 proposed budget and declare tax rates and debt service levy. So you can see kind of just highlights here. This will be the item for action if we get to that point by the end of the meeting. And then just reminder that we will have the Board of Directors meeting on June 1st. That will be the public budget hearing. We are required by law to hold an open hearing. We always do have public comment at our meetings, but this is a separate public comment opportunity for the budget. And to also present information with the goal of June 22nd being enacting the adoption of the 22-23 budget and declaring the taxes and levies. And I will hand this over to Sydney.
And Sydney, if I could just jump in before you unmute. For those who are trying to follow along, there was a 10-ish page document. It goes from pages 9 to 18 of what was emailed out to us. It's entitled Responses to Questions from Budget Committee Members in April 25 meeting. And there are 28 questions. So what I think would be the most efficient, kind of like what we did last time, is go through them. Obviously, Sydney, don't read word for word all these pages. We've had time, hopefully, to look through this. But if you can kind of highlight some of the issues through those 28 questions, and then we could ask more after and have discussion after. Thank you.
absolutely. All right, so I have a really quick prepared statement. Good evening. I want to thank you for your ongoing support of 4J and your willingness to ask questions. When I spoke with Juan Carlos last week, the rich conversation wound its way to the question, how can we be more transparent with our public messages? So in an effort to increase transparency, I encourage the committee members to ask clarifying questions if something is left unanswered. And Juan Carlos promises me he will do that. All of the answers to the questions were published and can be found on the district website in the board book under the district tab. And I am spending some time here because I know not every audience member has had a chance to read the written material. I hope to share on the record a short summary of the answers. We have directors on Zoom who can give a more detailed answer should you want one. So first question, we've already gone over this today, but isn't approving the budget and setting taxes a board action, not a budget committee action? So really it needs both. Budget committee approves the budget, general and the other funds, and then they also make a declaration of taxes and levies in both Lane and Lynn County. So Lynn, because we crossed a line over by Coburg. And then the 4J Board of Directors adopts the district budget and authorizes the tax and levy amounts for submission to Lane and Lynn County. Does anyone need an extra minute for that? We did go over it. Okay. Number 2, the legislature passed a measure that gives school districts funding for staff recruitment and retention. Is there an estimate of how much is coming to 4J? Is it one time or repeating funding? Is there information about how it can be used? So it is one-time money. It's House Bill 4030, and it's 78 million statewide. 4J is set to get around 2 million. So I have Rob Hess in the crowd to talk about one way that we would like to, we have to actually submitted grants. They're not competitive grants, so we should get anything that we ask for. But one of our ideas that's on the list of things that are okay to ask for is one that we've been working on. So Rob, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am here.
Okay, so we're going to talk about grow your own. The board has heard a little bit about this, but I don't know about the budget committee. So.
All right. So I'm happy to talk about it. My computer is telling me my video is stopped, which I'm fine with. So the Grow Your Own program is focused on diversifying the teaching workforce. And so the pilot program we started this year was focused on recruiting employees, EAs within our system right now who want to become teachers and who identify as BIPOC individuals. And so we've in this pilot program, we just started pretty much with principals identifying people that were interested, and then extending invitations and having conversations. And we've have a group of 8 to 12 right now that are interested in pursuing this. And this is a partnership that we started with Pacific University. And the reason why we've chosen Pacific is that they're the most flexible in the systems that they've designed to prepare teachers. They offer multiple options so that someone can work full time while they're being prepared. And they have 1 and 2 year programs, depending on what degree a person is seeking. So this is one avenue that we know that in order to diversify the workforce, we need multiple strategies. And those strategies would include, tuition assistance for people that are interested in becoming teachers, and then also mentoring support for them, and then job embedded coaching. We know that when someone gets that level of support, their likelihood to remain in the profession and stay in the profession is is much more likely to happen. So we also participate in the Lane pathway program throughout the county. So and we had I think 19 4J employees that applied to participate in that, and several of them got a grant through that program as well. So we're really putting a lot of effort and energy into this program, and this is one way that these funds can be used. And so that is an overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
You have 2, Rob. So
yeah, let's see.
Let's get, why don't we make them quick, since Rob just spoke, and then we'll want to go back to Sid to kind of go through the other 26 questions. Let's see Laurel's hand and then Gordon.
Maybe you said this and I missed it. Were educators asked how they would like to use this for retention?
Yeah, in this particular program, we just started with knowing that it's important to diversify the teaching workforce, right? So this is just, this particular grant lets you do far more than we originally started with just this one idea. So this idea is one of many things you could do. The way this grant is written, it's very, very broad. So I think, Laurel, that we haven't asked all the employees how we'd like to use it at this point, because we didn't know that this grant was available, but that would be a great next step.
And is this grant available just next year, or is it ongoing?
Yeah, this is a one-time funds that this grant is, and you're accountable to the outcomes that you put forward on the application. And I think that the district has a month, and Andrea can correct me if I'm wrong, to kind of say, this is how we're going to spend it, and then spend that for a year. And so you want to pick things where you can make an impact, and whatever's working the best, try to replicate that in future budgets.
I would, so what I'm hearing is it's really important that I hear what you're recommending, one way to use this, but I would, before we decide how we use this money, I think it's very important that we hear from our educators first.
Gordon, did you have something specific for Rob Hess, since he's on right now, before we get back to Sid?
Sorry, did you direct that to me, Josh?
Yeah, I was just saying, you were next, had a hand up, and
I do, and it's kind of goes with Laurel's question. I have a procedural question, which is, if we want to consider different things to do with this money, like I've raised a lot of times, what I think the importance of doing exit interviews and doing surveys, both of licensed teachers and of educational assistants, to find out what kind of things on the retention side, especially what kind of things might make them stay, or for EAs, what kind of things might make it might best create the pathway to become a teacher for those who want. So I'm just asking like, is tonight the last night that like we vote on this and then that's it? Or is like, this is a thing, and sometime during the coming months or year, there's going to be some process involving the board or educators or whatever to figure out what this money will be used for? Yeah, I'm happy to put that conversation off as long as tonight's not the last chance.
Gordon, we have until May 27th to turn in our proposal.
Yes, and you do not have to vote on these dollars. We will actually, once the decisions are made, we come back to the board during the year to bring supplemental budgets for any grants that we're awarded. So this amount, the amount for this grant isn't in the proposed budget.
But the question of how different people might want to use the $2 million, is that something that'll happen, that'll be open for discussion at some point after tonight?
Yes, definitely. And there will be a lot of discussion to be able to prepare a grant application for ODE. There's an expectation there. You can see that we use the equity lens in making these decisions. So there's a lot of work to be done before we can submit a grant application for approval.
But that, I'm sorry, not to belabor this, but that's going to happen. That has to happen by May 27th, right? So I assume that's got to happen pretty quickly. And then my question was, I was guessing that there would not be time to have a serious discussion about that between now and May 27th. But is that just what we need to do to get the money into the district? And then there will be some other process to figure out the best thing to do with it. Is that, did I understand that right?
We need to
jump in. Just Judy, as board chair, do you have a response to this specific question? I'd hate for us to get too diverted off of the presentation, but I have a feeling when I saw your hand go up, I wanted to give you that option. I'm sorry, Andrea, but I just wanted to.
I don't have a response. I just know if there's money. I mean, it sounds like this is one of the programs. My question related to how much we're asking, how much this will cost, and of the $2 million our district is allocated, is there money, additional money to spend?
Yeah, the answer would be yes. This program focuses on tuition assistance. So that would be $5,000 to $10,000 per person. So for the initial group, it's not a large expenditure, but I would recommend that it's something that we continue to invest in a district to support more and more BIPOC EAs, other classified employees to become teachers. So
Thank you. I would like to, if I may, return back to Sydney. We had a lot of questions last time and she's trying to answer them this time. So maybe if we can keep going forward. And I know you had I don't want to say guest speaker, you had Rob has come and speak. So there were a couple of questions there, but let's try to save them for the end if we can.
Okay,
Sydney,
thanks,
can I go back to you?
Rob.
Can I just say, we have 26 questions here and we should have already read this. So if people have questions, there's no way Sydney's gonna be able to get through 26 of this. And rushing us through this will not get us to any place that is helpful. So I just would like to point that out because we want to get to a place where we have the information to make the decision. And
so I would suggest that I do hope all 14 of us have read all this already. It's possible some have not. And second is we also have an audience in the public listening and they might be following along with it, may not have read it yet. So what I would like to suggest maybe, Sid, is if you could go through them, but quickly.
Sure.
And then obviously there may be more questions after, as Laurel suggested. Let's do that maybe.
Number 3 asks about the enrollment increases for next year. And so everyone heard last time that the state of Oregon is down 30,000 students. 4J was down about 700. We expect to grow by 300 next year. And that's the question. So that's what we're using for our estimations in the budget. Number 4, how many staff members has the district hired and how many have left in the last 2 years? So since May 1st, 2020, we've hired 638 staff members. In that same period, 591 staff members left 4J employment. And of those, 101 started and ended their employment during that time. Does 4J, number 5 is, does 4J look for ways to save on bond interest rates? And that's a yes. And we have a financial team that just monitors the interest rates. And we have saved, it doesn't save the district money, but it does save our taxpayers money when we find a good rate and we go back and change our bond rates. 6 is asking how we prepare our seniors to get ready for college. So the district does a lot, and we pay for local tutoring for SAT and ACT prep courses if kids if they want to do that over the summer. We have College Now courses that allow kids to get dual credit in the high school. Advanced placement, they have to test to get the credit. It is not the same across the district on which schools have the College Now courses. They're not the same throughout each one because each one requires teachers they're going to teach. And sometimes people have their master's in education, so they're not eligible to teach it. And then we have the AVID program, which helps kids who usually come from families that haven't attended college before. And then the SAIL program, which is through the U of O. And hopefully our counselors and our career and our college and career groups are sharing all of these with kids when they stop in. They'd like to know more. Number 7, they'd like to know more about the teacher mentor program, especially what does this mean for new teachers? So currently we have 8 mentors, 5 of whom are full-time, 3 are part-time, and next year we'll have 8 full-time mentors and 2 part-time. And the mentors are matched up with first and second year teachers. And all of them have taken Coaching for Equity and Coaching for Equity Masterclass so that they can support having conversations around equity. Number 8, what does equity and inclusion mean and how do you measure success? So equity ensures that the learner has all the necessary resources they need individually to succeed. So it's not equality. It is that each student gets what they need to succeed. And we're trying to create change to support our underserved and historically excluded students and cultivate every student's unique gifts and talents. And then success is measured individually by the evaluation of projects or initiatives and by measures including graduation rates, attendance, academic assessments, discipline data, school climate data, and harassment reports. So ultimately, complete success will be achieved when we systematically eliminate gaps in opportunities and barriers for access. Number 9, please provide additional information on College Now and opportunities for high school students. Can College Now opportunities be expanded? So I went over that a little bit. What College Now is a free program to students where they get dual credit. They get credit at the high school and at the college. And we would like to increase this program, but we do have some limitations depending on not the licensure of a teacher, but what their actual college degree is. Number 10, how does the SIA support the Natives program with the funding for 2 FTE? So FTE means full-time equivalent. And that's how we usually say full-time or part-time is by using those numbers. But district staffs the Natives program with 2 positions. One is full-time and it's a licensed position, and one is 0.8, which if it's like you work 4 out of 5 days or partial days every day for a classified position. It used to be paid for out of our Title VI grant, but we've shifted and paid for the actual people out of SIA and using the Title VI grant money to pay for tutoring, summer camp, events, and things that kids can do to strengthen relationship with recognized tribes. All right, number 11, please provide additional information about the SIA fund for improving 3rd grade reading. So reading proficiency by the end of 3rd grade is a significant predictor of future academic success. So our goal is to improve literacy for students in pre-K through 3rd grade. So we've hired specialists to support teachers in the classroom. We have 4 reading specialists who support kids. We have 8 FTE, so 8 full-time people, 1st grade educational assistants. So we've never had EAs in the 1st grade classrooms that are just assigned there, and we've started doing that. And we have professional development for best practice instruction, and this one is one that we've put a lot of efforts into. Number 12, please provide more specifics about the $2.2 million in SIA for behavior framework and behavior consultants. So this one, you were directed to go to the proposed budget on page 6 at the executive summary, and then on page 175 for the financial plan. And we can probably have a whole meeting on this one, but district administrators responsible for this program will be available today if you want. So Josh, we could do it at the end if you want and people have questions. Yeah. Okay, number 13. Why are kindergarten educational assistants staffed at 5.5 hours? So this is a historical change. In the past, the kindergarten EA were allotted to schools depending on what their enrollment. So how many kindergarten kids did they have in the class? We changed it about 2 years ago, and it was a large investment of dollars, but to 5.5 hours. So really, those EAs would have a half-hour lunch. So they're in the building 6 hours. So it's pretty close to the time that the kids are in the school. And as well, we added 4-hour EAs to all 1st grade classrooms, thinking that with the pandemic, they would need additional support. I don't think people asked that, we just put it in there. 14, what is the SIA funding for emergent bilingual student success focused on? Is it focused on English language development or on language immersion education? Is any to support the maintenance of development of the student's native language? So emergent bilingual student success plan supports emergent bilinguals. So that's a plan that we have. And we also know those as English learners. It's a standard curriculum, and we also give PD for our English language teachers. And we've hired additional staff to develop a newcomer program for recently arrived students. So ones who are learning English, and then ones who just got to the States, and we call them newcomers. Overall goal of this plan is for students to gain English language acquisition. Number 15, how will the district continue the Art Spark program if other funding sources such as Rotary Club support are withdrawn? So currently, the instruction department has budgeted $75,000 to support the program for next year, and we plan to partner with Art Spark to fund this elementary program into the future. Hopefully, we can get some support somewhere, but if we don't, we'll figure out a way to keep Art Spark with us. Number 16, what would it cost to increase the base wage for 4J employees to $18 an hour and raise other wages accordingly? So here's one that Juan Carlos told me that he could see us all pause and when the question was asked. And part of the reason is that we talked about this in executive session. So conversations that happen in executive session, we're not supposed to share them in a regular budget meeting, but this one involves compensation, salary, payroll costs, and benefits, and we have to negotiate it. And this could be arranged depending on how we negotiate it. Like, is everyone just going to start at $17 an hour, or will we bump everyone up? So it is one that is hard to estimate unless we know the parameters. So we do have a meeting with the board, an executive session to discuss OSEA negotiations coming up. And the board can hear more information about this question during that meeting. Number 17, how many staff do we have and how many have benefits? And at what point do staff get benefits? So employees who work at least half-time, so we call that 0.5 FTE, otherwise known as 4 hours or more, are eligible for benefits. In the past, we've worked to create positions that are over 4 hours. We had a lot of trouble when Sodexo was here with a number of employees working 3.5 hours. And so benefits begin on the first day of employment. And as of April 29th, so this must have been the day that they pulled the data, we have over 2,000 staff, and only 29 regular staff members who are employed are less than half-time. And what HR tells me is that some of those choose to be, like, they don't want to work more than that, or they can't because they might be retired from somewhere and they can only work a certain amount of hours with their Social Security. So 29 regular staff members are employed less than half-time. And then finally, out of our employees who are eligible for benefits, 6% have waived it. So sometimes they have coverage from a partner, or sometimes they have different coverage for themselves. And so 94% of our employees have benefits and 6% waived it. 18, what are the different positions related to mental health and student health or student well-being, and how do they different? So what we did was in this actual document, we put the job descriptions of each one in there. And what I know is that, I think it was Maya asked for, or maybe it was Laurel, asked for a list of people who to contact when different things came up. That's coming. We just don't have it done yet. So the directory is coming, and this that we gave you is just the job descriptions of the different service, or the different people that we have hired. Number 19, the 3.5 FTE for special ed and the 4.0 FTE for 504 plans in the budget presentation. Are these for new positions or continuing previously budgeted positions? All of them for new positions for the upcoming school year. Number 20, the budget presentation included 2.1 FTE licensed speech specialists. Does the plan include improving augmented communication, AAC devices, and things for students that are not always speaking? So we currently have 22 speech and language specialists. We call them SLPs, including SLPs who have AAC background experience and lead that work. We're losing one of our AAC specialists, so we're hoping to find a replacement with an equal amount of experience in this area. We have offered to send staff to trainings to increase their skills to better serve our student population. 21. What are the qualifications and training for mental health specialists and behavior consultants? So the mental health specialist position requires experience and licensure, and we've included the information on the position description. So it's a link, it should be working. And behavior consultants must be licensed teachers, and most have worked in behavior classrooms and/or with students with emotional or behavior concerns. The position does not require a specialized license. The district does offer to send them to a multitude of relevant trainings, including social emotional learning, and that's with curriculums and programs, MANT, restorative justice, and collaborative problem solving, just to name a few. The best after school, this is 22, the best after school program is being expanded. How many schools already had best programs on site and how many have been added? So the established sites are Chavez, Howard, McCormick, and River Road, El Camino del Rio, for I don't know what we call it now, and Kelly Middle School, and they were paid with 21st Century Community Learning Center federal grant funds. This funding expires in the 22-23 school year, so we'll reapply for it. I don't know that we'll get it. And then this year we've added BEST to Holt and Willa Gillespie Elementary Schools. And next year, we're intent on opening another elementary site with a combination of ESSER and SIA funds. And 23, there are a lot of one-time funds, such as ESSER, which stands for Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief. And now it's American Rescue Plan, so you're going to see ARP or ESSER being expended in the budget to hire staff and pay for programs, which is a concern. What will happen when these monies are no longer available? So over the next 2 years, as these one-time funding sources end, the district will look to incorporate new staff members hired with ESSER and ARP funding into ongoing funding models such as SIA grants and general fund. All positions that are bond funded and grant funded have the potential to end once their funding sources are exhausted or terminated. So the district has experience planning for this eventually and identifying staff retention opportunities. So it is one-time money, and the question is what will happen, and it might be that we have to cut some positions. 24, will the Eugene Online Academy continue to be an option for 4J students after the pandemic? So the answer is yes. The Eugene Online Academy was launched before the pandemic, but awareness and interest has been higher during the pandemic. The district expects to continue offering the online academy as long as there is sufficient interest, which means enrollment for students and families. 25, what are we doing to encourage enrollment in our schools? So at the kindergarten level, we've had orientation events over the past month, welcoming families and encouraging them to register early. Information about kindergarten orientation was shared widely, including through parent emails, social media, news media, and postal mail to preschools and every family enrolled in 4J. 26. Are there other districts in Oregon that have adopted a universal free lunch program? So there are districts offering universal free meals using funding source through community eligibility provision, which we call CEP, or Provision 2 programs. We don't know of other districts that are funding universal free meals from general fund transfer, which was what we'd have to do next year. So how much does a mental health cost, how much does a mental health therapist cost, and how much does a librarian cost? So the average cost to add a full-time licensed position, such as a teacher, librarian, or mental health specialist, in 2023 is $116,760. This amount reflects an average salary of $72,170 and payroll costs and benefits of $44,590. 28. Will 4J receive additional state funding as a result of statewide enrollment declines? So the state school fund estimate for each fiscal year is recalculated regularly by the Oregon Department of Education and can change for a variety of reasons, including statewide and district enrollment. So we could think we're getting a certain amount at the beginning of the year and get a different amount at the end of the year due to enrollment. Teacher experience levels, local revenue collections, transportation costs, poverty levels, program weights, and other calculation factors. The latest estimate has been adjusted for a significant drop in statewide enrollment, resulting in a higher per person payment to districts. Based on this latest estimate, the district expects to receive approximately $2.1 million in additional funding for the 21-22 school year, bringing our estimated state school fund revenue up to $97 million. This amount, though, is still $0.8 million less than our 21-22 adopted budget estimate. All right, that is my recap of all of the questions. And if people have questions, we do have directors in the room that could add to.
Excellent. I do see a queue already with Maya and then Gordon and then Dakota. So right before I call, thank you, Sid, and all the staff who helped put that together for our benefit and also for the listening public. Maya, go ahead.
Josh, before I start, I just want to clarify, I didn't want to interrupt each time I had a question, so I appreciate waiting until the end. But I just want to make sure, I can get through a couple of things. Some of them are just observations and some of them are questions that might be answered now or might be answered next time. Maybe I'll start and then I'll let you know when I'm done. I promise I don't have too many. So I want to start with number 13, which is about the kindergarten EAs. And I just want to ask maybe for next time if we could find out what the cost would be to increase that to making sure that the EAs are there from the beginning to the end of the day. Anybody who's spent time in a kindergarten classroom knows that the highest needs part of the day are the transition moments. And this would mean that the EA is either there at the beginning or at the end, but couldn't be there for both. So I would be curious to know what that increase is. Also, I think that would impact our enrollment in the sense that what we do with our kindergartners really sets the stage for retention of our students and families, and also sets the stage for success on their 13-year adventure with us. So I'm curious to know what we're saving by taking off that half hour of FTE. My next question is more of an observation, and it's a hope, a really strong hope for the future, which is number 14, the SIA for Emergent Bilingual Student Success. And I understand that's how the district is defining it, but I really want to encourage us to think beyond this hyper focus on English language development and to maybe look to our bilingual teacher experts to truly dig deep into all the studies out there that show that when you maintain a focus on more than one language, that not only do you increase the biliteracy, but you also increase academic success. And I'm really concerned as a person who learned English in school and who had the experience of having my own original language compromised from that hyper focus. I really want to make sure that when we are at the end of the year and we're celebrating the huge rates, if I'm not mistaken, Oregon has the highest rates of students receiving the seal of biliteracy, which is amazing. But I also understand that that is largely native English speakers learning another language. And it makes me really sad to know that that is not carrying through for our folks who are coming in with languages, whether it be Arabic, Spanish, French, fill in the blank. So I hope that we can expand that and expand our definition and expand how we invest in that language acquisition and development commitment that we have. Number 15 is about ArtSpark. And we're like so close to what ArtSpark is asking for us to do. They're asking for 100,000 and we're committing to 75,000. And The question, and I'll leave it just as like a question to sit out there, but how are we going to mitigate the impact of the lesser amount? Like, who do we choose doesn't get access, and how do we ask ArtSpark to compromise what they deliver? This is literally, apart from what classroom teachers in some specific programs do, this is literally the only thing that is district-wide that our elementary students receive in common for art education. And considering the huge numbers that we're talking about other things, I really want to push us to see if that last $25,000 can be committed to support that program, which I know we all really, really value, because I see the signs in front of every single elementary school. Number 21, about behavior specialists. So I know last time Erica Thesson specifically brought up behaviorism, and I noticed that neither PBIS nor ABA are listed in there, and I'm not sure if they're part of the just to name a few component of that, or if we are as a district moving away from that practice, which I personally strongly encourage us to do. So I'm hoping to learn more about that and to learn why the things that we have listed here were prioritized, which I was super happy to see as priorities. I have 2 left. And the last 2 I think might be easier questions, even if you can't answer them right away. Number 24 for OEA, what number or ratio would be needed to reach sufficient interest? Like, how many teachers do we need to match how many students, so that we can just kind of have a vision of how that's playing out? Because I'm hearing some teachers that are really excited to do that next year already right now in May. And I'm hearing families who have really found success in that. And so I'm wondering how we're gonna marry those numbers together to be able to offer that program. And then my last question is number 27. I love that we get to hear about the average number. I hate that it's now not just like an easy to multiply number. It's like 116, 117. It was so much easier at 1 or 110. But I also know that our staff is becoming increasingly, I'm going to say younger, but I don't mean in years of life. I mean younger in years of career. And so I'm curious also, I hear, and I've met so many teachers who are in their first year or in that first salary step. So I'm curious what the difference is between our average number that we hear all the time and what that might be for this newly emerging, seemingly growing cohort of teachers who are at that earlier part of their career, and how that, I just want to know what that number is, because when I hear 117 and I hear 72,000, and I don't have the number in front of me, so I'm just remembering it from my brain. 116, 760. See, my brain's not going to multiply that many times. I'm just curious. I know that the teacher that lives 2 blocks away from me is doing the same job as the teacher that lives in the same house as me, and they're not both receiving 72,000. So I'm really curious how that number looks for the teacher who's just embarking, especially since that's our fastest growing licensed demographic, not just teachers. We have this intention of looking to the university to bring forward mental health specialists. So it's going to be like a number of people that were the Grow Your Own program. All these things are telling me we're going to have, and again, not the right word, but for our sake, I'll say younger teachers career-wise. And that was a lot. And I tried to go fast because I see a whole lot of other hands.
And
thank you.
Maybe if I may say, if we can get through the comments and questions first, unless we turn to Andrea or Sydney. I think, I don't know the next opportunity to answer, to write out answers to these questions, but I'd like to hear more of the fellow committee members with some of the questions and statements they have. I have Gordon, then Dakota, then Laurel, and then Juan Carlos. Go ahead, Gordon.
Thank you. I have 2 things. One is I would like to, on the board's May 18th meeting, I would May 27th about spending the $2 million. So we'll have a chance to look at it and talk about it when it's closer to completion. And then I also, I guess at the June 1st is the next time we're going to talk about the budget. I want to go back to getting the information about what it would cost to have $18 as a minimum wage and to increase the accessibility to healthcare for part-time employees, which my understanding is you get something if you're at 4 hours and something else if you're at 6 hours and something if you're at 8 hours. I may have it slightly, but there's some kind of tiered thing. And if there are different options to what it would cost to make better health insurance accessible to more people. And I just want to feel like there might be some confusion about this. Obviously, ultimately, any agreement like this has to be bargained and in a contract, but there's nothing, so we're not talking about bargaining or negotiating in a public meeting, but there's nothing, there's no problem with talking about this in a public meeting if it's the budget committee thinking, how we want to figure out if we think this is a good idea that we would encourage the board to make a proposal on, or if it's the board thinking, is this something we might want our representative to make a proposal on? But especially because we're adopting a budget, I just don't want to be in the position where if we adopt a budget in June and then in August we're in bargaining and say, hey, here's this good idea. So sorry, that's not doable because the money has already all been spent on other things. I mean, that may be where we are, but to me, that's the connection between why it's important to know this as part of the budget process, is because it may keep that as a possible option or may, or not. So I would like to get that information on, I guess the next time we're going to be talking about the budget is June 1st. Unless there's another budget committee meeting before then. Thanks.
Dakota, you're next.
So I wanted to ask about the 26. I understand that we have the no lunch shaming bill. Are our nutrition specialists, our administrators, are they aware of what the bill says, and is it being properly enforced in our schools? That is a concern of mine. And I would like to see if I can get some sort of answer to that.
Hi, this is Holly. I'm the director of
Yeah.
nutrition services. Yes, so everyone has been trained. And one of the ways that we can combat that is they don't ever take food away from students. That's just not a practice we have anymore.
Are you sure about that? Because my concern is that it is happening and we do not know about it.
If it's happening, is not being reported. So I can't comment if something's not being reported, but I'm not hearing that from parents or students. I'm not hearing it from principals. I'm not hearing anyone reporting that. So if you're hearing that or seeing that, we definitely want to know about that. But yeah, we don't take food away. They used to take food away at the end of the line. They would punch in their number and then their account would be negative, and they'd say, like, take away the regular meal and hand them a cheese sandwich or something. That does not happen. We don't do that anymore ever. So unless something crazy is happening that we're not aware of, that's just not a practice.
That's good to hear, and it's just a concern of mine.
Yeah, no, we agree. We would be concerned if it's happening as well. So I'm glad that you're thinking about it.
I haven't heard anything about it, but I'm sure it could happen. That's what I wanted to ask about.
Great. Thank you, Dakota and Holly, I know it was a kind of a quick question and answer. So I would just want to make sure before we turn to Laurel and then Juan Carlos that someone, I'm sure staff, has been taking notes on all the comments and questions that our committee members have had thus far, starting with Maya and Gordon. So either later today after these other two comment or at some other point, we'll hopefully get some answers to that. Laurel, go ahead. And then Juan Carlos and then Erica.
Okay, so for number 6, I believe that was my question. And my question was, how are we getting seniors ready for life after school, not college? I know we have a problem with focusing on college, but we have a sizable amount of students that have no interest in college and leave the school with no ability really to take care of themselves. And then I was wanting to know, and this tied into, I think we had a little bit of a discussion about CTE with this. So my question was, where's the funding for that? How are we getting them ready? And what is all out there? So if that can still be answered, that'd be great, because that was not answered. It was only focused on kids that want to go to college. Number 8, I found that I found that to be just a very weak answer. I know it just was, it was saying success is measured individually by we are not looking at kids the same because we have more Black, Brown, Indigenous that are being removed from schools. Every time since I've been on the school board, every time we talk about Black students, it comes up the same time as we talk about behavioral. We do have a systemic problem in this district and how we view our Black, Brown, Indigenous. I would say most of our marginalized students, and this also includes our students that are SPED as well. And our graduation rates reflect this. So with an answer like this shows that we still have a lot of work to do because there could have been pinpoint answers about what we're doing to mitigate that and how it's working, but that's not what we got. This answer disappointed me mightily. The College Now opportunities, I had a question about that. Do we have did you say, I don't see that we have amount of the students that do this? Is this growing? Is it available to all? Is this only for kids that want to go on in college, or is it also for kids that want to do career and technical things at like LCC? So it'd be great to see who has availability to this program. I also, as far as our, sorry, I'm looking at things. I don't think I wrote the number for this one. It had to do with the, I guess I don't have the numbers. One was knowing, I asked for a cheat sheet on all the mental health supports and things like that. And so, well, this isn't it. I think Maya mentioned it, didn't you? So we need something where people can just look at it and understand where to go. Educators, staff, students, parents, everybody can know what their resources, and for it to be something. I suppose the easiest way to have it would be electronically, where you could click what the issue is, and these were the people that work at the district that you can contact for that, or who we contract with. Money wise, I don't understand how we can make a decision to start staff off at $18 an hour, because I know the board can say, we want that to happen, and then we're gonna have to figure it out. But the best case scenario to figure this out is to know what that amount is, so it can be approved and written into the budget, and then negotiate the fine tuning of what that looks like in your negotiations and bargaining. But having those numbers, I think, are very important to know, and they could be ballpark. But it's almost impossible to say to a and I've been mentioning this just so everybody understands since I first got on the board. So this wasn't something that was just talked about in executive session. I've been talking about this since I first got on the board and found out we pay people under the federal poverty wage line. So I don't think that shows us in a good light. And I've been asking for this information and have been thwarted. Well, up till now and past now. So I think what's really important is that we get this information, that the people that are working to help us in the budget committee have some of this information. It doesn't have to be exact amounts. We need to know how to work it into the budget, because this needs to happen. So, and it isn't just part of bargaining. That is the excuse that's made because it makes it simple to not have the conversation, because obviously if people wanted this to happen, they would have already done it. So I really would like to get those numbers, and I do not find that to be something that has to be a hard number that says this is the amount they're going to get. It needs to be a ballpark that the budget committee can work on. Please let me know if that can happen. Thank you.
I have 5 people now in the queue: Juan Carlos, then Erica, then Tom, then Michelle, then Gary. And let's go to Juan Carlos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your passion and your donations of time away from your families. I have 2 quick comments, and I have a couple of follow-up questions. Number one is this is a appreciation week for the teachers. So teachers out there, thank you for your service. I think it should be a whole month appreciation. And secondly, my second comment is welcome to the new board members. Congratulations on your appointment. I look forward to hear your philosophy and your values on education. And of course, look forward to work with you as well. Regarding question number 7, thank you so much for responding, staff and superintendent. My interest as it relates to equity and inclusion and diversity has to do with not just the number of mentors that they impact and the composition of the mentors. I would like to know the composition of how many of them are BIPOC, how many of them look like me, and if you don't have many, what steps are they being taken to give other teachers of color the opportunity to also be mentors. Same thing with TOSA. I'm interested in finding out how many TOSAs are out there. And primarily, again, because of the equity and access and inclusion, but also that it actually creates a lot of weight into teachers and those out there, how they view others training them or supporting them. And I would like to make sure that we establish that baseline, that people that look like me can also be mentors. It is okay to become that. Now, my follow-up questions have to do with number 27, and I'm going to jump around a little bit. Number 27, thank you so much for bringing that info. That was much needed to really kind of get an idea what it will cost to bring a new staff like a licensed librarian and therapist. 116,760. The question is that include benefits or is that the total compensation package? Because look, what happens with these numbers, staff and superintendent, is we are looking for those numbers to be able to then make recommendations on where to get the funding. And I think that's connected to what Laura was saying earlier about the $18, regardless of whether it goes to bargaining and the negotiation, is that we just want the information so that we can say we recommend to the board to go after an ABC grant or to move money from here to satisfy the needs of this. But without those numbers, we're just kind of in the dark in a way. So kind of shedding some light to why that is important. That's connected to the third question that also Gordon brought up, the 2.1 million of additional funding. You know, I'm looking forward to hear the board itself to see what direction is going to be giving you guys. And perhaps that's where the conversation needs to happen. Again, now that you have the numbers, 116,760 to fund a position X, Y, and Z, then perhaps you can, as board, can move to fund those things. And then the last thing I have here is I asked the board for the utmost consideration to guide in a more clear manner staff into which grants and funding sources that you think is necessary to fund the programs of interest or the item that you want. That way, when you get to a point where they're already about to get a grant, there will be less discussions or misunderstandings or disagreements into where the money needs to go to. So hopefully you consider that. And then the final thing is, it seems to me that there's a strong interest and energy on trying to find money from different sources, but when we asked for example, where the efficiencies can happen, I know that earlier it was asked to define the different positions as it relates to mental health. And I know Laura started that conversation and was asking about that too. The main interest is if we have 12 positions into one program, are they redundant? Are they effective? Are they efficient? And if there's some savings that can happen from merging, in my opinion, effective, and use the talent where appropriate, perhaps that will be some other money sources to fund other programs and interest. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Erica, then Tom, Michelle, and Gary. Go ahead, Erica.
Thank you. I wanted to say I love the plan of really looking strongly at $18 an hour for the staff. I think that's the floor, not the ceiling, but I definitely think that's a good place to go. One of my questions I had is, and I meant to ask this last time and it got away from me. So the suicide prevention and safety assessment specialist and the behavior threat assessment specialist, are those kind of under sort of like a healthcare part or behavioral health part, or are these under the law enforcement agency? Because I want to make sure when we're looking at suicide prevention and things like that, that we're not coming at this from a law enforcement standpoint or like a punishment punitive standpoint. I mean, these are young people that are in crisis, so I want to make sure we're coming at this trauma informed and from a behavioral health standpoint. So that was one of the questions I had. The other thing, I actually bring because my 14-year-old child brought it to me. My child Autumn is autistic and is non-speaking. And my child wanted to know if, when we look at budget and we look at mental health services, that we are making sure we are not putting funding into using ABA or applied behavioral approach, which for many people who are neurodivergent and have autism, it's considered very not trauma informed and quite harmful. So anyways, that comes directly from my kid, that, they just want to make sure that school funds are not going to use a technique that's often considered harmful for people. So anyways, that came from me, from a very earnest 14-year-old trying their very best to text it to me. So anyways, I appreciate the time, and yeah, happy Teachers Week. I agree. They need a month, they need more, and I wish we could give them more than breakfasts and all of our love. But that's part of why we're here and the board is here, is we can affect some amount of change to really let the educators and staff know that we truly respect them for being experts in their craft.
Thank you, Erica. Next, I have Tom, and then Michelle and Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, I had maybe it's just a reiteration of number 7. I think Gordon asked about the exit surveys and whether, I think Rob was fielding that question and maybe a couple others as well. I might have missed it, but exit surveys of teachers of color, whether they're happening, whether that's on the docket for next year. I didn't see it in there. And is there a plan to institute that? And if so, does that mean, would it be so, would it put such a strain on HR that we couldn't do it? Or